Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle, and I am the host of the Plunge Talks podcast here at the Space Fort Lauderdale with today's guest, Charlie.
Hello.
Charlie, how would you like to introduce yourself to the world?
I would say it's hard to just give like a general introduction, but I would say there's some things that have impacted the way that I interface with the world. So one, I was homeschooled to like 7th grade.
Oh, wow.
Schooled at the crib.
How was that?
Well, my family's like super religious. A lot of homeschoolers like in the South, like Southern Baptist, it's like a religious thing where I don't know if it's like they're trying to hide their kid from the world, but you know, you want to like keep more factors in place.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was good in the sense that I think it made me, you know, it's funny, like when you go to school, there's a certain amount of like bullying that happens. And bullying is definitely not a good thing, but also like getting social feedback is a good thing. And so I think there's like this, homeschoolers are known as being like very unusual.
Kind of weird.
Yeah, very unusual.
I mean, that's the stereotype, right? Is the homeschoolers are kind of the weird kids.
Yeah, and it's because they don't get that much social feedback, so
Right.
they're just like, mom's just like, good job.
Like, you're doing great,
Yeah,
kid.
and if
Yeah.
you don't get like social feedback, then I think you can become like a little bit too like not understanding social dynamics or anything. But I
Right.
played a lot of sports and I had older siblings, so I definitely got a lot of like, and my pops is like rambunctious, you know?
Rambunctious pops.
Yeah, and so I feel like I got a little bit of, I got enough social feedback, but I feel like that was always an interesting thing because it just makes it, I don't know if like I'm a contrarian, but it definitely makes it so sometimes I'm less willing to just like go along with something because I'm like just.
Do you find that it made you more kind of confident in yourself, like centered in yourself, like knowing who you are when you're out in the world, rather than just conforming to whatever the people are doing or the trends or whatever?
The only thing that has made me feel centered in myself at all has been yoga, for sure, over like years of doing it. But it definitely made me just like not understand. Like, for example, when I was younger, I used to like wear Crocs and jean shorts. And
Before Crocs were cool, probably, right?
way,
Yeah.
oh my God, you have no idea, no idea. People would call me Crocs and socks, like they were really not into it,
my
but
God.
yeah, but it just like didn't bother me at all. I was just like, well, I just didn't understand, because that's like an example of there's certain things, and not everybody's on Crocs or whatever, but like there's just certain things that people like feel strongly about, but it's like, I'm not sure they know why they feel strongly about it. It's just like what they do or
Right.
whatever, what they're told. So I think I wasn't so bothered by like people not being down with what I was down with. Like I was like really into like Dougie and Jerkin when I was younger. I would just like be bored and put my headphones on and just start
Just like hit some Dougies.
like
Let's do it. That's it.
You know what I mean? Like I was on some other shit.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to curse?
Yeah, of course.
I'm
Absolutely.
gonna
Fuck
try.
yeah.
Oh my God, that's terrifying. I've never seen this side of you. I don't want to wrestle.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm kidding. I know you're violent.
Well, unless you come to jujitsu with me, then that's a different story.
Can we also, real quick, expose what is that thing that we just did?
Hape.
Okay,
Yeah, Charlie just did his first hape ceremony. So for those of you who don't know, hape is a sacred tobacco snuff. It comes from the indigenous cultures in the Amazon jungle. I love it. I use it for meditation, grounding, all that good stuff.
Sure.
And so Charlie joined me in a pre-recording hape
So
sesh.
I would say, now this is not always the best thing, and I don't want to speak for Michelle, but I feel like I'm definitely a little bit of a state chaser. You know, that's why I like the cold plunge. That's why I like the breath work, because it's like natural drugs, but also I'm okay with a little kava. I like a little hape now. It was just a nice little
kratom.
light-
I got my Mitra
Oh,
kratom.
look at you.
Yeah, I know. Am I sponsored now?
Yeah, so it was just an interesting thing. So if you ever want to blow tobacco dust up your nose, if you ever get the hankering for that, you know, it's pretty good, honestly.
Yeah.
Light buzz clears you out, but all right. Okay, so one thing, I don't know, I feel like homeschooling, I had a lisp growing up. I think that greatly impacted my
really?
life.
How did that?
So manifest,
Yeah.
it was like a lateral lisp. So
Oh,
S's,
interesting.
CH's, Z's, Can you imagine if I still, like, so my mom took me to, like, speech therapy when I was, like, 5th grade, and, you know, I think about that all the time because that's why I speak so good now.
Yeah, you speak like a pro.
So good.
Enunciate every word.
Yeah, just iterating. I don't know, so I feel like, all right, homeschooling, sometimes I think about it, so homeschooling impacted my life a lot. I think having a list growing up definitely did. Those are the 2 main things that the world should know about me.
Yeah, excellent.
So.
So when you transitioned from homeschool to, I guess, high school, right? How did that go?
So it was in the 7th grade.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because, again, so I grew up in a hyper-religious environment, like semi-culty, but not culty, like my parents are cool. But
Asterisk.
But semi-culty.
Not a cult, but...
But the cultiest part about it was actually the school that I started going to, so it was called Crescent Christian Academy. Bleep out in it, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
no, they're all right. And, yeah, so, all right, so it's like 100 kids in the high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
oh, that's
like
very small.
Really, and then here's the thing that's interesting, like a lot of the teachers like went to school there, and then now like their kids go to school
so
there.
It's very ancestral.
Yeah. K through 12, less than 300 kids in the whole thing. And yeah, so I go there in the 7th grade, and it's funny, it was actually kind of like a good warm-up school, because if I had just gone straight to the public school, they'd have eaten me alive, like,
sounds like
for sure. And okay, so yeah, that transition was interesting. Like, I couldn't believe that people like went to school for that long. Like, I barely did school. Like, I was going to school from like 9:30 to like 1. And then I'd go over to my grandma's house because we didn't have cable, just because it's like, you know, electronics are the devil type thing. You know what I mean? Not really. My mom just wanted to be a good influence. And so I would go over to my grandma's, and she had cable. This was like the golden era of reality TV, like Flavor of Love, Rock of Love, Daisy of Love,
Jersey Shore,
Stallionaires, Cribs, whatever, like Pimp My Ride. And so I would just basically so I guess I say that to say, like, I couldn't believe people went to school that long, because I would just get out at 1 and then go watch this incredible TV series. So I don't know, it was interesting, like, just going to school. And then here's the thing, you go to school all day and then you come home and do school.
Is it the worst?
It's crazy.
Our education system is so fucked up. Like, how can you, like,
Did you go to a public?
I went to a public school. It was a small public school,
Sure.
but even still, you know, there's so many kids these days who are diagnosed with ADHD and all this stuff and all these, like, neurodivergent things. And as a child, how can you sit still, period? How can you be expected to sit still from, I don't even remember, was it like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. or whatever for an entire day? I'm a grown up and I can't sit still for that long.
I'm like
when I was working an office job, right? Like in my office job, when I was like tied to a computer screen, I was getting up and wandering around like every like 30 minutes. I couldn't sit still.
Yeah.
And the fact that they make kids sit still, and I actually was homeschooled for a year.
I love that.
Right?
That's why you're such a freak.
That's why I'm such a freak, yes. But no, it was a similar thing. Like I was with my family. I was in 8th grade, and we took a year off. My dad had lost his job, but we took a year off to live on a sailboat, which was so fucking cool. It was so
Wait, how old were you
cool.
at that time?
13 to 14.
That's so sick.
Yeah, so it was amazing. But like homeschool
year.
was, yeah.
So you lived on a boat for
I lived on a boat.
year.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That has to be easily one of the most transformative periods in your life.
Significantly. And I think a lot
How
of
would
it
y'all
had
get
to
food?
do with,
Y'all are fishing?
well, I mean, we weren't like out.
Okay, you
Yeah,
jumped
no,
and
we were
docked,
like,
right.
yeah, because we started in Sanford, Connecticut, and then went all the way down the East Coast, down to Florida, and then over to the Bahamas, and then back up. But it was so cool.
Yeah.
And but you know, being a kid, right, we had school, the teachers gave us all the books and everything that we needed. And like on a day that we were transiting, so if the boat was going from one place to another, we wouldn't do school because we had, you know, there were other things. Like my brother and I we're twins, so we were both the same age, and you know, at 13 you can kind of take on some responsibilities.
on the
So
boat.
we would we would help drive the boat, help navigate,
Starboard,
stuff like that.
What do they say?
Right, yeah. I think your
keep
career is
going,
on
sorry.
land. I think your career is on land. But we would do school for like maybe an hour or two or whatever if we could. And even then, when we came back to start high school, like I felt we were so far ahead of our peers, just simply because of the life experience and having the freedom and going to all these little islands in the Bahamas that weren't touristy. And this was back in 2004 maybe, like 2004. So a lot of non-touristy areas. So we were getting to know the locals and getting to know a ton of other people that were living on their boats, and it was just like such a cool introduction to life.
For sure.
And then to have to come back to high school.
I'd have gone
absolute
crazy.
Nightmare.
Crazy.
It was awful. Yeah. High school wasn't fun for me, but
I'm blown away. But yeah, no, honestly, like when you're doing something, the amount of confidence that you would build, like running a sailboat. Or whatever,
I mean, we were doing like night watches and stuff. Like when we transited from Florida to the Bahamas or back, that's a day and a half of transit. So we would be sailing overnight. My brother and I would sit watch. So we would drive, we would navigate, we would, have to call different boats on the radio to see what their course was.
What's the scariest thing that ever happened to you during this period?
So there was one transit in the Bahamas. We were going from Long Island to Cat Island. And this is sort of on the edge of the Bahamas, so you're not in like the banks or whatever. So it's, deeper ocean, it's pretty exposed. And there was a lot of wind, a lot of sea state. I mean, I think the waves that we were seeing were like 10 feet or more. And I just remember it being like so gnarly and so wild, and I was so scared.
And,
then
tiny, so
and
a
I was
10-foot wave looks
oh my God,
like
it
way
felt
bigger.
enormous.
Yeah.
And like we were towing our dinghy, as you usually do when you transit, but then like the dinghy flipped over, and like that was our way to get to shore. That was our way to get provisions and stuff. And then my dad was trying to like right it, but then he was on the back of the boat, and then my mom was like freaking out because like what if like it just got very dangerous. And
do you remember these memories as being like kind of is it?
Oh no, I was like,
I
remember like freaking the fuck
life?
out. Right. Like I remember like hyperventilating, like feeling so out of control, and like just being so scared. And at that time too, like now I've been racing sailboats for a while as an adult, and I love it. I love being on the water. I love a big sea state. I love when it gets gnarly. That's my favorite. But as a kid, I was so afraid. I felt so out of control. And like you were saying, I was a small kid, and these were huge everything. And I didn't understand how any of it worked, and it was just crazy. So luckily, I don't think I've had to work through any of that recently.
Okay,
I think I've processed it, had a little exposure therapy on my time, in sailboats. I sailed to Bermuda. I've done a lot of like offshore stuff. Bahama, come on, pretty. That's not trademark or copyrighted, so YouTube can't get mad. Don't get mad.
You're not playing it. We're not playing it.
But yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
It's crazy.
So learn it. School sucks.
School sucks. Don't do it. I'm kidding.
No, honestly though, I don't know if I'd do it. It's funny though, like certain experiences. So like also when you came back to school, you probably were like, why I'm in here with all these little kids? Like I was just running a boat, That's how I feel.
Yeah.
That's how I felt a little bit. So when another pivotal thing that happened for me, like when I was 18. So I'm at Crescent Christian Academy until 11th grade, and then some crazy stuff went down where like, I don't know if I should say it. I'm not gonna say it, but point is, a mentor of mine was like getting into some stuff. He wasn't living the most.
Got it.
Godly life turns out.
Right.
A shocker.
No.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that happening.
This whole place imploded. Like
really?
It was nuts. Yeah, because there was like just such a scandal that went down, and so I was just kind of like, And I was like one of those people, I was so bought in, like I was like trying to tell everybody about Jesus. Like I was really, really locked in.
You were like living that evangelical life.
Oh my God, because my brother got in trouble. He got like sent away to military school. My sister got in trouble. She got sent away to like brat camp.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna
be the good one.
Yeah, these people, you know. And so I was really locked in.
Yeah.
And then a lot of stuff, you know, you just ask a bunch of questions and then you see like, there's certain things, like I just remember people would always be like, I hate dressing nice. Like I wear the same stuff every day. I don't like to think about it, you know. But I just remember that they would always be like, you know, come as you are, you know, and I'd be coming as I was. And then they'd be like, change your outfit.
Come as you are, but not like that.
So I would be like, well, this isn't me, you know. So there was a lot of different things. So craziness went down. And then I was basically like, all right, moms, I'm not trying to go back there. And then this really like, and this, I'm gonna bring it full circle to that.
I trust you.
Right,
I'm here for the ride.
And then I was like, all right, I'm not trying to go back. So then my sister was teaching English at a Tico school in Costa Rica, and pura vida maya. And so it just worked out. I homeschooled senior year, first semester, graduated early, and then I went to the Tico school that she was teaching at for 4 months. It was easily the most transformative thing that's ever happened. Like nobody spoke English, and it wasn't like, it was like a little concrete town. I lived with this lady and her 2 daughters, and like cold showers, tiny room, but the best food I ever ate because she's cooking for me every meal. Like it was really, really an incredible experience.
How's your Spanish?
Oh my God, en el pasado pude hablar mucho mejor, pero ahora casi nada. So I was pretty good back in the day, but now basically none at all. I mean, I can read it pretty good, but it's just they speak so quick.
So fast, I know.
But I love it. I love Latin culture. I love Spanish. Okay, and then but the thing that was interesting, like being like a youth out there and just like traveling on the weekend. I was just like a baby, you know, I was 18. And so I like couldn't, you know, in some ways it's weird because I was like kind of sheltered in some sense, but also I just had so much freedom. Like I just like the fact that my parents let me do something like that. And then just around the neighborhood, I was the youngest. So it was just kind of like, just, you know, make it home alive, you know? So I just had a lot of freedom. And but I just remember getting like freshman year college afterwards, and it was like a lot of times people were like getting there, that was the first time they were out on their own, and everybody speaks English, you know, and so I was like I was like kind of like a little annoying. I think I was like, you know,
like,
these people don't, you know.
Right. It's like those people that like go to Europe for 2 weeks and they're like, well, in Spain, we did this. I'm like, shut your fucking face.
I was a little.
You were that kid.
I was a little pompy.
Yeah,
you know? Pompous. But I would say that's kind of like your sailboat experience. I feel like you would have been like 14 years old and been like, I know what starboard is. Okay, I know what.
Well, when I was on a sailboat.
Literally.
And maybe that's why I had a very hard time with friends in high school, because maybe I was that girl. I don't even remember. I feel like I've blacked out a lot of my experience.
Adolescence is so weird.
It is hard.
It is really
I don't ever want to do it again.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. How much, you know, it's funny because that's another thing I'm so grateful to yoga for, because like yoga makes me like getting older. Because my body feels good still. Like eventually it's gonna like start on the, you know, but
maybe or maybe not.
Well, it's inspiring. Like there's so many people that I look at and they're like in their 50s and they're literally so strong. Their body works so good.
Well, let's talk about your yoga journey then, right? So Charlie teaches at Yoga Joint. And so when did you find yoga? Like, what is that all?
Okay, so after college, it's so interesting too. Like, I love the word synchronicity. Like, it's where it's like divine intervention, where it's stuff just like happens, and it's like, wow, this seems like it was meant to be a little bit. Like, so I was living in New Orleans. I was like a coder, and I got my first job. It's kind of like a contracted internship position, working for my good friends who were in the department, but they were like so much smarter than me. And then they were like, all right, come on, buddy. You can hang out and we'll pay you nothing. But I'm kidding, they paid me okay, but more than I deserved probably, to be honest. But it was fine. And all right, so I'm 23, New Orleans, moving around the city. That place is pretty cool.
Oh my God, New Orleans is insane.
It is kind of crazy, especially when it's like, I'm not like a country bumpkin, but I am from a smaller town, and that's not the biggest city, but it's still like, whoa, this place is cool. All right, and so basketball was my thing growing up. Like, I used to play a lot of tennis, but then I quit tennis. I'm like 15, and I'm just hooping all the time. Like, that's where all my friends came from. I just go to the gym every single day, stay there 3-4 hours. And so after school, I have the gym. You know, I don't know anyone in the city. I'm going to this gym, and I'm like, got my people, and then I snap my ankle, and I'm like, I'm like really devastated because.
Of course. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Getting an injury to prevent you to do the thing that you love to do.
Yes, and like your only connection to any people there,
Yeah.
really. And so I was really devastated, and for a while, so the thing is about New Orleans, they have like casinos, and so there was this place called the Blind Pelican, and I would like on every Friday, they have this deal where you can get like, I don't like oysters, but I like charbroiled oysters, where they just cook them in like butter and cheese. And so I'd go and get like a beer and 12 charbroiled oysters for like, it was literally like $9.99.
Wow.
Insane.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And I would get 2 of them, so I get double, so I was...
You're well fed.
I was horny as fuck. You know what I mean? What's that? What's that
Yes,
thing that they do?
aphrodisiac. Yeah.
And then I'd go straight
Ready
walk.
to take on New Orleans.
Ready to take on the casino. Walk straight to the casino. All right. So point is, I was like, all right, I got to rehab my ankle. That was a weird period, but that was pretty fun. I do love the casino a little bit. Shocker, state chasing.
I love casinos. I just don't like how the ones down here don't have live craps tables.
Agree. It's got to be live.
Because that's my game. It's got to be
Yeah,
live.
it's gotta be live.
Craps is the most fun game
Yeah.
because you're in community. It's
it's
not
a
like
team.
you're
It's a
playing
team.
against one another.
Yeah.
It's everyone. If one person's winning, basically everybody's winning.
I don't even think they have live roulette. They just have live
Really?
blackjack down there.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, gross
Ew.
is right.
Yeah. Anyway.
What was I gonna? Okay, and then
Your yoga journey.
oh yeah. So then I kind of like snapped my ankle. I was like, all right, I gotta rehab this, John. And so I just like there was a girl that I was seeing for a while, and then we had stopped seeing each other. But the place, there was this yoga place, Ferret Street Yoga, right by where she used to live, and it was just the one that popped into my head close, and I'm like, maybe I'll run into her, you know? Like young adolescent, like sad.
Oh, I lived that life. Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But it's amazing because like it was such a good place to learn yoga. There was this guy, Joffrey. I'm in there with like a bunch of middle-aged women that are so strong, right? And I'm like 23, and these women are just like kicking me all around, you know?
Amazing.
I wish, not really, but they were so much stronger than me though. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so, but it was the perfect place for me to like really learn the practice of yoga and really like get into it. And then from there, I was like, I think, you know, I remember talking to my friend and being like, oh, I think this could be like really impactful in my life, like beyond just trying to rehab my ankle. And so, you know, I just like keep doing it. So I leave New Orleans, and then I get another job on Cape Cod at working for like a high-end home automation thing. And so I go out there and I find like another little yoga studio that's nice, and then this yoga studio. I'm so isolated though, because Cape Cod in the winter is,
Oh yeah, there's no one there.
oh my God, and the average age is like 60,
Yep.
and which is, you know, shout out all my 60-year-olds, but you know, I was
Shout
like,
out to the OGs.
yeah, I was like
Yeah.
24, 25.
But that's tough. I mean, especially to live in a vacation destination off season is a whole nother animal.
It was weird. It
Yeah.
was a weird. This is probably like, but it's funny. This was definitely like I wouldn't call it like the lowest time in my life, but it was definitely like I hated what I was doing, but I needed to keep getting more experience. The place I was working, me and this manager didn't really get along. A lot of me just being a little too adolescent and inexperienced, and a lot of him being a prick. But I learned so much from this guy, and he radically changed my life, so I'm grateful for that. But yeah, so through there they had like a 200-hour yoga thing, and I'm like, all right, well, this is like, I'll just get it done, because most of that stuff, if you know yoga, you know yoga. It's like anything, it's a business, so you got to get the certificate, but like, it doesn't necessarily mean you could teach or not. So from there, it was like, all right, I really, then COVID happens, so I'm working remote, and I'm like, all right, I can dip. I finally get out of there, and then I'm still like, COVID was just crazy. COVID was so crazy.
That was, I hate saying it this way. For me, COVID was the best thing that has ever happened to me.
That's good though.
Yeah.
Why is that though?
It gave me the space to actually make changes in my life that I had to change.
Sure. Sure.
I was in a job I hated.
Yeah.
I was in a horrible relationship, horrible. And I was feeling so stuck and lost. And like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I completely lost touch with who I was. And so when COVID hit, like, I was working in the city, working in Manhattan, working in finance, and my job was like, and at that point I had just gotten a horrible review and I needed to quit, but I had a lot of bills to pay. Manhattan is not cheap and nowhere to go, and I didn't know what was gonna happen. And I'd already blown through all my vacation time for the year. And so the moment my job went remote, which was right before, like days before the lockdowns, I was like, my parents had a place down here, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going. And I booked a 6 a.m. flight out the next morning. I called my parents, and I was like, hey, is it cool if I like come down and hang out for a little bit? And they're like, sure, whatever. Packed for 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks to stop the spread. Ended up staying here all summer, and it gave me that space away from my life, away from the bullshit, and like I could finally breathe. Now I was still working, and the job got so much worse because it was a nightmare. But on my breaks, I could go to the beach, or I could go swim in the pool, or I would give my laptop to my dad, and it'd be like, hey, can you just move the mouse every 5 to 10 minutes keep and if
keep
anybody
that green light
and like
on.
I had a list of names of my managers, and I was like, okay, if you see messages from any of these people, can you just let me know? And then I would go hang out by the pool, and it was amazing. but that was the thing that gave me the space. Like I couldn't do it in my life as it was, because it was just like this vortex of energy that kept me away from any kind of expansion or any kind of acknowledgement of who I truly was at my core. And so in coming down here, having the ability to come down here, get away from all that, like totally, it changed everything for me. Absolutely everything.
That is beautiful. And I guess in some sense it did change for me, because that's the reason I'm in Florida too. I mean, it just took me a lot longer.
Yeah.
It's like after I go back to North Carolina for a while. I'm living with my family, and then I'm like, I gotta get out of here. So then I'm living with my friend. He's letting me pay like $450 a month rent. It was awesome.
Amazing.
Oh my God. But I'm like so sad, because I just need to be in the mix. Like I gotta be bouncing around.
Yeah.
And I was tweaked. I was on some like, when has the government ever cared about health? You know, so I was like on the like, QAnon. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, he's not kidding.
No. But so yeah, you know, it's funny too. So I was doing nothing. I was just trying to wait it out. I was like, all right, this is gonna be done. I don't have a job right now, but I had such a bad experience at my last coding place. I was like, do I even want to code anymore? Like I do like aspects of it, but I just had such a bad experience. So I'm like not coding, and I'm just chilling, and I'm like doing my little workouts at home, but nothing crazy. This is actually though the period where I started getting into like the holotropic breathing, like the Wim Hofen, yeah, so basically, you know, another thing that's really nice, sometimes you have to do something you don't want to do because it'll like make you grateful for something that you had before. So
100%.
I got a job as like a manual laborer on a construction site.
Okay.
So I'm making like $12 an hour, and I'm just like knocking down sheds or like cleaning up stuff and sweeping. So, and you have no idea how quickly I was like, I could code again. I think I could be a coder.
I think I could sit comfortably at a desk.
Yeah,
and
no, but it was good because it got me outside, it got me moving, it got me like, it just like kind of kicked me out of this like little pit that I was in. And so then I started applying or whatever, and then I got this job, Lunchbox Technologies in New York, and that's what I still do, and I'm really grateful to them. Like this little Russian genius hired me. His name's Mick, and he's just an absolute legend. It's unbelievable. I think he's a robot, to be honest.
Really?
But he's the most charismatic robot I've ever met.
Amazing.
He is. He's awesome. I love him. And all right, so where were we going there? It was like we were talking about yoga.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I had my 200 hours at this point, and I knew like I just had to get out of Durham. Like oh my God, I do not. That's not my place these days. I'm glad I grew up there. It was like very interesting growing up there, but just was not my spot. And so I was trying to find out like what's my next move. I was actually planning on moving to New York before the pandemic happened.
Uh-huh.
But so then randomly my buddy is like, let's go to Miami. I'd never been to Miami. I'd never even been to Fort Lauderdale or South Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, all right, let's pull up. So we get like an Airbnb on South Beach.
Nice.
And this is like,
Yeah.
and we were like, it was, yeah, so I just never been. And this was like, I haven't been outside. Like, even at home, the yoga studio started opening up, but like, I can touch the person in front of me, behind me, to my right and my left, but we're all wearing masks. And it's a hot yoga class. And I'm like, this is the silliest thing
That's the dumbest thing. Like,
I couldn't handle it. I'm literally like, because I'm like, how is nobody else like complaining? Like, I'm like looking around, and Durham is just very much so like, we love the government. We do what they say. And I am a little bit not like that. Yeah. I'm a little bit less like that. And so I'm just like constantly looking for like affirmation. I'm like, do I have schizophrenia or something? I'm like, why is everybody just cool?
right.
Nobody's worried about nothing. Or they're just like, you know.
Or they're doing that, but their mask is like below their nose.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that, like, on what planet does any of this make sense, number one? And then number two, like, you think you're doing it right, but your nose is still exposed, and in fact, our nose picks up more germs than anything else.
It's insane, and so like people didn't even care; they just were fine to comply, I guess, because it was better than being in the house. I still wanted to go to yoga.
Yeah.
And so, all right, so this was like a year and a half of doing that, because even in South Florida, like y'all shut down because it was like legitimately scary for a while. It was like, what's
I mean,
going
you
on?
didn't know. And I remember being in New York. I remember because I was in sales, so I was going to different buildings. Morgan Stanley was my client. I was all over the place, and like client meetings were the thing that was my responsibility. Building that relationship and all that stuff. And I remember when the first news came by of this new virus that like the person who was exposed was in South Florida and then came to New York, and now they're talking, okay, like these cases are starting, and the person, whoever that like first person in New York was that like identified as having the virus, worked in a building or was in a building like literally next door. And like I'm taking the subway multiple times a day. I'm going through Times Square because that was where one of the offices was. Like I was just around thousands and thousands of people constantly. And I remember being so scared. But then my company was like, I'm like, well, I don't want to go. Like, if this is a real threat that everyone's saying, I don't want to go be in contact with all these people. And they're like, no, you still need to I had to have like 70 client meetings a month. It was insane. And I'm like, okay, so you want me to die? Because that's all we knew, right? We didn't know anything else.
Yeah, for sure.
That was terrifying.
Very, very terrifying. Okay, so this is like a year and a half into that going on. By the year and a half, it's like, to me at least, is a lot less terrifying. I mean, the way it works, like, the way, you know, like, we're fit. Like, if we get taken out, everybody's
Yeah.
you know, it's like,
If we're in trouble, everyone else is in trouble. For sure.
And okay. All right. And so, all right, so I go down to Miami. And I was baffled. I had no idea that people were like living outside.
Yeah, like, well, because I mean, I think South Florida was closed down for like 3 months. Because it was closed down when I got here, and then I had to go back up north, I think in like May. So March, April, May. Yeah, 3 months. I had to go back home in May. And literally the day I was leaving here to go back to New York was the day all the gyms were opening up again. And I was like, motherfucker.
So
but yeah, so like COVID existed down here for like 3 months.
Yeah, totally different. And so we went to like Oasis or something, like I don't even know, it doesn't even matter. We're like doing the little one hitter, like smoking weed inside, and I'm like, this is crazy.
Like, this is great.
This is so cool.
There are no rules here.
Yeah, literally, there's literally no rules. And so so I get back home and I'm like, just immediately I signed a lease. Like I didn't do it in Miami, I did it in Fort Lauderdale because I just, for some reason, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for Miami yet. Like something was just like, maybe like Fort Lauderdale is more like a starter city for me, I think. And plus I ain't got no money. So.
Yeah, so that makes it a little challenging.
Yeah. And and then I didn't even visit Fort Lauderdale. I just Googled a climbing gym and a yoga place. And I found Yoga Joint's the first thing that popped up.
Amazing.
It is amazing. And then And then we, just came down, and then like I started going to Yoga Joint. And so right away I was like, this place, so at first I was like, it was interesting because it's really dark in there. And at first I didn't really like that much. But now I'm like, I don't like doing yoga in a studio that's bright. Unless it's like natural light, then it's okay. But like you just drop so much further into the practice.
Yes.
Like a lot of hot yoga studios too, they have like a heater versus like infrared heat that's like beaming down on you. It's a totally different experience. You're not like breathing in hot air. It feels really different. There's probably 7 or 8 teachers there that would be, in my opinion, by far like the best teacher where I'm at, like at home. Like just absolutely, I love Kelly Green so much. And they're all though so good. And so like just seeing that, and like I knew I wanted to be in a bigger yoga market as I'm like trying to like just pursue it more and get better.
So at this point, were you trying to teach, or were you still just a student exploring?
I was trying to teach, but it's like a long game, because the first thing you feel like you have to do, especially in a place like that, is you just have to become a member of the community. If I did learn anything in the church, like one thing I do respect about it a lot is like it is like a community. And you understand like how communities thrive and how they work. And I mean, the biggest thing is like you just become a member. So like I was in there every single day. Then the final thing, and this is another like kind of synchronicity thing, or it's like the more I practice, the luckier I get type concept. And so I go on, I pay like a decent amount of money to go on, this is in December. I get there in March. In December to go on like a retreat with them. And it's like 2 of my favorite teachers, Vanessa, Yogi Thought.
Love Vanessa.
Absolute legend. Jeff B, another absolute legend. They're literally all legends. And yeah, so I go on their retreat, and it's so funny. Like, so I'm flying Spirit Airlines because I'm rich.
I mean, sometimes you do what you got to do.
Yeah. I'm flying Spirit, and then like I check a bag, and I'm like, oh my God, this was more than JetBlue. But so this other girl that I had never met, who's now one of my best friends, she comes in here a lot. Her name's Haley. She is, she's like the lead teacher at Yoga Joint, one of. I think Carissa's another one. And so she also is flying Spirit, but I had never met her. And so I'm thinking like, damn, I should have been on that JetBlue flight. But then that JetBlue flight gets delayed, and it's just me and Haley. And so the lady, Kathy, is like, all right, look for this person. Y'all are going to take the bus together. And so I meet her. What's up? What's happening in? And then like we had like an hour bus ride, and I find out she's a lead teacher. And then so we just like became pretty good friends on the trip. And at the end of the trip, I'm like, I'm trying to teach there. What's good?
Help.
And she's like, all right, work at the desk, and then we'll like get you in there. And so then I like worked at the desk, and then like their process is like super refined for how they, having your 200 hours is one thing you do learn a lot, but you don't learn like how to run a class and how to like
how to teach.
You learn what the practice is and the asanas or whatever. But yeah, it's a totally, I honestly feel that what I learned from them was way more valuable in some of these sessions. And they sent me like a 55-page document of all the cues that Kelly Green makes. Like, it's a really, they're gonna blow up. Like, and like they're trying to franchise nationwide, and it's gonna work for sure, I think. And what was the question?
You're doing great. No, just your yoga journey. So you started working the front desk?
Yeah, I started working the front desk, and then I auditioned, I made it, and I just started teaching. So I have like 2 classes right now. Wednesdays, Hollywood 7:45. Thursdays, Hollywood 7:45. It's been interesting. 2 things that I think about a lot is, all right, so first thing, I have to make this switch, because first off, like yoga is just inherently sexy. Like, it is. It's the sexiest thing. Like, when do you breathe that deeply? Like, without the breath, like, yoga is just pushing yourself against the floor. But, like, when you're, like...
when you're in it and you're breathing with your body moving, and...
It is really, really sexy. And so, as a student in there, like, I have, like, my eyes are closed. I'm really not... Like, my whole goal is to, like, get rid of the lizard mind, like do not submit to your biology, close your eyes, get in your bag and do your work or whatever. And that's what I do. But then as a teacher, you're like allowed to look at people, and you're supposed to, because it will inspire a cue. Like if I see somebody's right hip is too far forward, slide it back, square it, whatever. But that's one thing that I found has been interesting, is like that transition of like respect people's space, don't like be looking around, just do your yoga.
Do your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then now being like, maybe you could like tweak that a little bit,
Yeah.
So that's been fun and interesting. And then even what you do here, like you were talking about it before on the, it's really interesting, like managing that much energy.
Yes. Yeah, like what we were talking about before we started filming was that you just had your biggest class ever, right? Which you said 49 people, 49. Which is insane. That is an insane amount of people.
Brand is.
That's how good he is.
No, that's how good their brand is. It is. They just get heads.
But it's like, so there's one thing to teach, there's one thing to know your craft, whether that's yoga or breath work or CPR or whatever it is, whatever method you're teaching. But it's another to be able to hold that space, to make people feel safe, feel comfortable, feel seen, feel heard. And then also we as beings, especially, I feel like we're very, you and I particularly too, are very sensitive to other people's energies. And so to be in a room where energy is moving like that, right? Where it's that physical, it's the movement, it's the breath, it's all these things, they're moving energy, people are all having their own experience. And then to be the holder of that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Right? It's so much. And so it's like how to manage that.
Yeah, and
like
how
did you manage that?
I just have to do the Ujjayi breath with them the whole time. I'm literally such a nervous person, but I think it's kind of like SAMR or whatever. What's that acronym?
ASMR.
That one.
ASMR.
So I just have to breathe because I'm such like a tweak nervous person, and then I'm up there and I'm like, why are they letting me do this? What's going on? But then so I'm just like the whole class I'm like, do this, and then do this, do that. Which I will say, like the breath is just, and this is gonna transition into maybe some of just the deep breath work y'all do here, the holotropin.
Yeah.
Holotropin. It is, I just love it. I love yoga so much. Here's the other thing, is like, there is something that happens, like, when your body starts to open up. That's what I mean when I was like, I wouldn't consider myself like a very confident person or assertive, but like when I was younger, like, I was like this, like it was bad. And I know why, and it's a funny reason why, but I'm not going to say it because it's inappropriate. But, and it's maybe not actually the reason why, but man, I want to say it, but I'm not going to.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not gonna. You got to know how to reel yourself in. Like when I was younger, I used to just say anything. And now, like even I gave him like a best man speech at my brother's wedding, and he calls me before him. He's like, I'm not going to tell you what you can or can't say, I'm like, whatever, dude. I'll keep it kosher. All right, where were we? We were
talking about teaching yoga.
Teaching yoga.
Breath work.
Yeah, just okay, all right, so let's talk about this deep
dive
breath
into
work
deep
thing.
breath work.
Yeah, okay, so I was in here the other day for that deep breath work thing with Sock and her, and their presentation is immaculate. You get the masculine with the feminine. They're gonna open a portal, and then they're gonna shut it. It's like you just hyperventilate for literally like an hour. You induce the trauma response, and then all of these memories that when you were like feeling traumatic about.
You're traumatized by.
Yeah. I've been traumatized by. Like just come up, and you like people are in here like having exorcisms basically, and they're crying. And I cried for like 20 minutes, and I can't remember the last time I did that, and it was really like. Really weird experience, but then you feel so light afterwards, and I'm blown away by it because again, like I love yoga so much and the way it opens your body, but the breath is what opens you up from the inside out. Like you can try to stretch your right side, but until you breathe into it, like it doesn't really stretch like that. And again, I'm a state chaser. Like I used to do a bunch of different stuff, and now I mostly just like do movement and whatever, but like this was one of the craziest like drug feeling experiences, but then positive feedback loop because I didn't feel bad afterwards.
Yeah.
I just
It's a clean way to release, and like that's something that breath work for me has been so powerful on my journey. That's why I open this space. That's why I teach it. That's why we do our deep breath works, is because like it's the one, breath is free.
It is
right?
free.
We do it every
Until
day. We
I
don't think
start
about
selling
it.
Yeah. Okay.
But like that's a later business venture, I'm sure. But like we have access to it 24/7. You don't need equipment, you don't need
Nothing.
anything, you just need your body, your breath, and then the rest is up to you.
Sure.
And your journey, like people have psychedelic experiences on breathwork. I know that, so I've been doing breathwork since 2020, since I was going through all that crazy stuff.
What was the first like radical experience you had with?
But so the first radical experience I had with breathwork, I think was one of the first times I ever did it. I discovered there's this place in New York called Frequency. And this was before COVID happened, this was before the lockdowns, but I was still going through all the horrible shit in my life. I felt like I was at my rock bottom. And when I started seeking, some spiritual guidance, and but the teacher who I was working with at the time was teaching at this place, I can't remember the name of it. It'll come to me, but she was teaching at this space, and I started to go through their calendar, and I saw that they had breath work. Yeah. And I saw that, it was like this immersive dome. It was called Frequency. I don't think they have a space anymore, but they do some online stuff. But I just remember like being in this dome and crying so hard. I could not breathe.
It was
I could not
holotropic,
stop.
or?
It was holotropic.
Yeah.
It was the same kind of style that we teach.
How long did they go, roughly?
I think there were like 45-minute sessions.
Yeah.
But it was just game changing. And so what I think is cool about breathwork too is like, even if you're someone who are like, I don't really have trauma, or I don't really have anything, and I know you laugh because we all have something, right? And that's just part of the human experience. That's why we're here. But so I've been doing breathwork for years, and so it was a couple months ago, sometime during last winter, I forget, I was doing a session online with one of my favorite teachers, Tiffany. She's amazing. I'll actually link her website in the show notes in case you are interested, but she was doing this breathwork session. So I was in my room, I was like, great. I had released a lot already. I had gone through a breakup last year that was really challenging for me. But I was feeling really good. I go to therapy once a week. I do my breathwork every day. I was like feeling great. And so I started this breathwork session, and I'm like, great, I'm in it. I remember crying. But I came out of it, and I was like, that was a good session, good release. I went right to bed because it was later. The next day, I was in the kitchen making my coffee, and my mom comes up to me. I live with my parents. It helps. It helps. I wouldn't be able to open this space without it. But I was in the kitchen making my coffee, and my mom goes, like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm great. Yeah, I'm fine. Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, do you remember? And I was like, what do you mean, do I remember? I was so confused. And so it turns out that I was so deep in my breath work, and I was crying, and I was yelling.
Your room,
so I was in my own
online.
bedroom at home, online.
Oh, this
and
is great.
and so apparently I was so deep in
Are
it.
you good?
No, she said that she heard me like yelling, like I was yelling. I don't remember this. I was yelling, and she came into my room, and she was like, Michelle, are you okay? Because she didn't know I was doing breath work. And I wouldn't respond. I just kept, she said I was like crying, I was whatever. She came in, she couldn't wake me up, or she couldn't like get me out of it. And so then she like left, but I was still going. She said she came back 3 times to try to wake me up, and I wasn't. And now I don't remember any of this. I remember crying during that session. I remember having like a great release. I remember feeling really good after. I slept like a baby, but I was so in it.
Yeah, you're DMT'd
that
up.
I was DMT'd up. My mom could not wake me up, and I had no memory of it. But that's a crazy thing about breath work, right? Like, people have these experiences. It's an exorcism. It was an exorcism, and consciously, I don't know what that was. I don't know. I didn't even know at that point that I had so much to release.
Sure.
But it got me there, and I was in it, and it sounded very scary from her perspective.
Oh, I bet. Well, this is another thing. Like, the reason I call them the exorcism, like, even when I'm in here and I'm like, like the lady next to me is like, like she's just like,
I mean, people are
going through it.
In
Yeah,
it.
it's amazing. It really is. Like, I'm like such a, I want to do it again so bad.
We are signed up for the next one.
Sure I am.
But
Sure
that
I am.
is.
So if you want to see me cry in about 2 weeks.
Yeah. Come through. Our schedule's all online.
That's crazy though. Okay, so
Yeah.
like, did your mom have any like further questions for you afterwards, or she was
like a ton, yeah.
Michelle's on some weird shit.
Yeah,
We're
no.
gonna just let her.
No, she had a bunch of questions, and even I had emailed the teacher, and I was like, hey,
Do you
this
remember?
happened. Is this like normal? You know, but that's also something that's cool that being here, and now that we have this space, and I'm facilitating, and Sak and I are facilitating breathwork, like, you know, moments like that, one, we can handle. I mean, I've seen everything. I've seen people purge, vomit. I've seen so many tears, laughter, movement, it's like Kundalini activation type stuff, which is amazing. But like, we can handle all of it, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like, I was in my bedroom alone, and you know, my mom was like, what's going on? But here you're with community, you have support. I do energy work, so I'm clearing as you're going through it. Sak is leading, like it becomes this like really immersive and
It's a
very
beautiful
safe
presentation.
experience.
It is an absolutely beautiful presentation. It's funny, there's so many different ways to release trauma. I'm so fascinated by this one. When I was younger, like a big part of my time in Massachusetts was basically me, I was making music, and I was isolated, so I was just writing all of the time.
Yeah.
And it's so funny how like when you write something, you can kind of like leave the emotion on the page. Like there's even stuff to this day that I could read that could make me cry if I let it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't let it, you know?
Let it.
No,
Tears
I'm
are
kidding,
good.
I'm kidding.
We cry here.
No, yeah, it's pretty good. But yeah, it's funny. There's like, and again, actually, like, you know, I only say this because it actually, so when I say like homeschooling has really impacted my life, I think having that list really impacted my life. Another thing that really impacted my life that I do not do anymore, and I haven't for a while, is like MDMA. I like had this when I was 23. I had this crazy experience where I like was, I like went to a festival and I thought I was like doing MDMA, and it was like probably like bath salts or meth or something.
Okay.
It was like pretty scary.
Yikes.
It was also a little fun, but I'm kidding. It was like freaky.
Don't do meth, children.
Yeah, don't do
Don't
it.
do meth.
Just breathe.
Don't take drugs from
I didn't
strangers.
sleep for like 3 days. It was crazy.
Jesus.
Yeah, and so, but I was like, okay, well, and I'm young and dumb. I'm like, all right, well, I still have like, I'm curious about altered states of consciousness. Like Aldous Huxley is one of my favorite writers, and he has this book called The Doors to Perception, where he does like mescaline. Like there's a lot of different interesting things that go on that like, even with the breath work, like you release DMT, like you'll go to another place.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
It's really, really interesting. So it like radically changes your whole idea of everything. But so, all right, so I'm like 23, and I'm at the time like, all right, well, I still want to play with altered states of consciousness, but this was not a good experience, so I need to like figure out what's the best way to do it. And I found this website called rollsafe.org, and it like shows a bunch of studies of like PTSD in conjunction with therapy and a mild amount of MDMA, and they like literally give you like the dosage per your body weight, and they're like,
wow.
this is the best way to do it. And again, this is all in the past. I don't do stuff like this anymore, but so I would like, they like taught me how to like buy it off the dark web.
Oh, wow.
With like Bitcoin. I'm like,
my God.
you want to talk about a red pill? The U.S. Postal Service delivering goods to your door is like it's just crazy.
That's insane.
Crazy. Yeah. Okay, and so like during my time in Massachusetts, I was like just writing a lot and like doing a very small amount of like MDMA at the crib as like kind of like a therapeutic release.
Yeah.
And just crazy. But so I've been like I'm obsessed with this breathwork thing right now because it's literally free. And it feels better than this other stuff does.
Yeah,
Like
there's no hangover, there's no depletion of your dopamine or serotonin. There's like you were saying, it's like you finish the breathwork session and there's no guilt, there's no regrets, there's no anything.
You feel fried, but it's not like
well, and it's like
serotonin
it's that like
fried.
Exhausted because you've
It's
moved
effort.
so much energy.
Yes,
right.
it's a lot of, that's another thing I love about it. It is so much effort to over and over again.
Yeah.
And so it's like you earn it. You
earn
know?
it.
And then your lungs are, the best book ever, Breath: The New Science of the Lost Art. James Nestor is like, it just talks so much about the breath, and it gives you some really interesting case studies, and it's like your lung capacity is one of the biggest indicators for longevity.
Yeah.
And just being able to work the muscles that move your diaphragm, because like when you're breathing in, it sounds obvious, but you're not actually like breathing in. It's like what do they call it? Like what's that instrument?
Like an accordion.
Yeah, it's like you just are creating space, moving.
Well, and the diaphragm moves down, right?
And then that pulls in the air, just like an accordion does.
Yeah.
So it's like, and so like, yeah, just building those muscles are like so important. And man.
No, it's amazing. And not only during the breathwork session, right, are you having these experiences or releases or whatever, but then afterwards you learn how to breathe properly. Like I used to never breathe in my belly, right? Because I always wanted to look snatched, so you gotta suck it in. And so I was breathing lightly through, and like now I find myself, I you know, in day to day, if I'm having a bad day, I make myself breathe all the way into my belly. I also feel like when I work out, I control my breath so much more too. Like I'm so much more aware, so much more in tune, and like I do jujitsu now, and like if I start to feel myself like getting out of breath or whatever, I just stop and I slow it down and I calm it down, and that helps me stay, you know, focused through the session, and you know, instead of like dying, I'm like, okay, let's do this, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's insane. And that's why, I mean, in any yoga, like, I just try to emphasize the breath so much because, you know, I know people who do yoga for so long and they never really connect with their breath in the way, and then you can just see people, like, there's the people who walk out of yoga class and they're, like, stoned. They're just absolutely smacked because they've just been, like, for an hour straight, just up and down, and it's crazy. Let me see if
Checks notes.
see if any topics we missed here.
Yeah.
Intro, yoga joint, Wim Hof, NC, pandemic, crying breath, modern dating. No, we're not getting into that.
We're not, yeah, that would be a whole nother hour. That's a whole
Not
nother
getting into
hour.
that. All right. Do you have any more things to say? Because I want to show one thing for the camera because I'm so happy, but
Let's do it.
I don't have anything else to say. But all right, so I love I love people who are like in the doing just stuff. And so all right, I like Roxanne's. Okay, don't judge me. Okay, it's not a retainer. Okay, so I'm at Roxanne's the other day.
The bar?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
And like, and by the other day I mean months ago, years ago. And so I go outside. I'm a little banged up, you know, but I feel good. Talking to this guy, his name's Austin. I'm like, yo, what's really good, Austin? What's your deal? You know? He's like, I moved here for jewelry school. I make
didn't even know they had
jewelry.
jewelry school.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I don't even know what that means really.
Right.
But I'm like, do you know how to melt silver? Because I've been thinking about getting an 8-piece on the bottom for a while. And so I just got this little 8-piece grill.
Oh my God, you have a grill.
Look at this. They said
This
I'm on.
is certainly the first grill that has ever been on this show, perhaps.
Look, but let
in
me
this
tell you
space.
something. The reason I got it,
I'm dead.
look at it.
Wow.
What do you
Wow,
think? You barely
look at
even
you.
notice it. You barely even notice it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, but this
let's
is.
go.
But
Do you
look,
teach yoga with your grilling? You should.
I've been thinking about it.
Yeah, that could be like your thing.
Yeah, no, they'll hate me. I don't know if that's, well, point is, all right, but I just want to plug Austin real quick because I love when people are doing unusual things. Like, this is an unusual thing. This is lovely. So I'm like, all right, I don't know how much experience you have, my boy. I'm going to need a good deal on it or whatever. But I'm down. Like, he literally it takes me to his car, imprints my teeth. I pull up to his crib.
You did that right there in the Roxanne's parking lot.
Yeah. And I pulled up to his crib because I want to see some of his prior work,
Right.
you know? And this man
Oh, and then you went home with him.
look.
Not like that, not like that.
Yeah. No, this was days later.
Okay.
And so I pull up, and he's like melting silver down in his crib.
Oh my God.
It's like, I just love that. Like,
Yeah.
he's like,
he's in it. That is
in
his
it, dude.
craft.
He
He is
moved here.
unapologetically doing his thing.
he moved here to get it done. They came out great. Shout out Austin. If you need a 6'8" full set, bust it down, anything, I got you. I'm gonna take a little off the top for me. But
I'll link it in the show notes.
yeah, so I just want to be sure everybody knew that I'm drilled up.
No, I'm so glad you shared
And
that
it's a
with
good
us.
deal. I'm not gonna say how much I paid for it, but I'm
Right.
telling you, like, you're losing money not paying for these. It's such a good deal. So, and
love
look,
it.
now I have my teeth.
Oh wow, isn't that nice?
Yeah. So you got
That's hysterical.
you got any
Oh my
final
God. Final words?
This is pretty good, I think.
This is great.
Hand
Thank
hug?
you. Yeah. Oh, hand hug.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Is that beautiful?
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Hopefully the recording worked.
Yeah, let's hope it works.
That's my fear. But hey, come to the space.
Come to the space.
Do breath
Yay.
work. Feel me?